Good morning, Year 11. So today we're going to be looking at three different things. So we're going to be looking at the context of Lord of the Flies, the key theme of degeneration, and then we're going to be doing some close analysis. So looking at bits of the text and looking at how to analyse those in detail. So that is the plan for today. So let's have a look at William Golding and a little bit about his background first, as context is a key part of what you are assessed on for the exam. Okay, so William Golding, he played a part in World War II, and that's had a profound effect on his view of humanity and the evils of which it was capable. After the war, Golding resumed teaching and started to write novels. So we know that he's had this background where he's been a part of World War II and then went on to write books. So obviously that's going to influence how he sees the world and what he writes about. So he paints a broader portrait of the fundamental human struggle between civilizing instinct, so the impulse to obey rules, behave morally, act lawfully, and the savage instinct, so the impulse to seek brute power over others, act selfishly, and to indulge in violence, and to go against these moral rules. So we see that quite a lot within Lord of the Flies. So there have been lots of critical readings of Lord of the Flies. Many of those claim that Lord of the Flies dramatises the history of civilization. Some believe that the novel explores fundamental religious issues such as original sin and the nature of good and evil. We see that through the character of Simon. We see that through Jack and his actions as well. The others that have read Lord of the Flies use psychoanalysis theories to look at the novel. So, for example, Sigmund Freud, he taught that the human mind was in a constant battle among different impulses. So the id, which we've spoke about, is the instinctual needs and desires of humans. The ego, which is the rational mind, and the superego, the sense of conscience and morality. So obviously we can assign these parts of human beings' impulses to key characters within this novel. Obviously they'll have all three within them, but there are parts of their personalities which are definitely more prevalent. For example, the id is much more prevalent in Jack's character. Okay, some say that Golding wrote the novel as a criticism of the political and social institutions of the West, so Western civilization. Although Golding's story is confined to the microcosm of a group of boys, it's definitely it resounds with implications far beyond the bounds of the small island, and he explores problems and questions universal to the human experience. So, we will experience these sorts of things in life. It's not just within this island. So this island, this story, is an allegorical novel. It's a message to show the trials and tribulations of being part of society. Okay, so that's a bit of context for you. We're going to look at the theme of degeneration. So I'm going to look at how to put this onto a timeline. So I'm going to pop a plot summary onto Google Classroom. You can read that through to remind yourselves of the story and how the story progresses. And I want you to draw up a timeline of key parts of the novel that demonstrate points of degeneration. Okay, so at the beginning is where you're going to start. So where do we first see that sign of degeneration at the beginning, and how does it progress through the novel? So you're going to draw up your timeline. If you can add key quotes to that, then that would be fantastic as a revision tool as well. Okay, so I'd like you to spend at least 20 minutes on this, drawing up your timeline and thinking about key parts of the novel. Have your book with you so you can refer to the key parts, the quotations that you might add to this, okay? So pause the video here and then you can get on with that. Okay, so here's an example of my timeline. It's definitely not exhaustive. I've just picked out some key points from the novel, and I'll go through and explain some of those now. So my first point I've chosen is an argument about who is chief. So obviously we've got this argument between Jack and Ralph over who should be chief on this island, who should be the leader. Jack giving reasons like he can sing C sharp, obviously quite trivial, quite childish, and is a little bit petulant when it comes to finding out that the boys actually want Ralph to be in charge. So that is what causes this rift between the two boys throughout the novel. It's this idea of who has the most power. Jack goes to kill a pig in chapter 1, but he can't do it. This is because, you know, he's been conditioned by civilization. He just doesn't see it as the right thing to do, but he's really frustrated with himself and says that he'll do it next time. Then we get the fire burning out of control on the mountain. Obviously at this point the boys are, you know, that the boys are excited by the fire, and that awe puts them into this sort of savage state. And Piggy is the one that reasons with them, and he's like, "Well, how can we get rescued if we can't have an orderly manner? How can we be rescued if we can't light a fire sensibly?" So that burns out of control, and obviously that's the first death that we experience as well within the novel, of the boy with the mulberry birthmark. Then the arguments about building the shelters versus hunting on huts on the beach. We get Jack and Ralph again having this sort of tension between the two of them. You know, Ralph is the only one that's building the shelters apart from Simon helping him, and Jack is going off and fulfilling his what Sigmund Freud would refer to as the id, you know, all those impulses to track and kill. Roger throwing stones at Henry later on as well. You know, Henry's building sandcastles, he's a little one, and although he's thrown to miss, it still shows that capability to and desire to hurt. Although at this point in the novel, civilization is still too much of a hold on Roger to actually hurt Henry. Then we've got Jack painting his face, so this liberates him from the civilized character that he once was. You know, he's changed from Jack the choir boy to Jack the savage hunter. So this does free him from that character. Jack forms a separate group of the hunters. So he says that he's not going to be part of the group anymore because he doesn't get his way in being chief. So he goes off crying, and that's one time that we see Jack as quite weak when he doesn't get his way, and he doesn't get power through his dictatorship style leadership. He shows his weaknesses, but because of Jack's, you know, offer of if the boys want to come and you know, be part of his group, then, you know, they'll be able to hunt and they'll have fun. So obviously this entices some of the other boys over, namely those of the original choir. So then we got the frenzied killing of Simon. Obviously, you know, he goes back to find the others after realizing that the beast is in fact the dead parachutist, and he speaks to the Lord of the Flies. and then we get this really vivid imagery of him being ripped apart by teeth and claws, and that those being of the young boys. Then we get to the stealing of Piggy's glasses ending in Piggy's death, because Piggy gets so angry about the fact that Jack has stolen his glasses that he says he wants to, speak to him about it and tell him that he's done wrong, and if he'd actually asked nicely he would have given him the glasses, but the fact that he's stolen it, obviously plays on Piggy's sense of morality. So he goes over with Ralph helping him the way there, obviously because he can't see, and that's when there's this massive argument, and Roger ends up letting this rock fall upon Piggy, and therefore ending in Piggy's death. And then finally we get the hunting of Ralph and the burning of the island. So the boys Jack decides that he's going to hunt Ralph, and there's this repeated phrase that Roger has sharpened a stick at both ends, implying that perhaps he's going to, just like the Lord of the Flies, the pig's head, he's going to sever his head, stick one end of the stick in the ground, and the other end of the stick is going to hold Ralph's head as an offering to the beast. So very, very grim imagery here. And really shows that how far Roger has come as a character. If we look at Roger throwing stones at Henry to here, it's changed massively. We really do see that degeneration in character. They burn down the whole island trying to smoke Ralph out, so they don't really think about the repercussions of what this is going to have on in terms of their survival. So yeah, we got the degeneration line here. Okay, so I've picked out a key extract. Okay, so this is Jack's transformation. So have a read through this extract here, and I want you to have a go at completing these boxes for me. So in no more than 50 words, how has Jack changed in the first 3 chapters? And then this is useful for revision. So using the novel, draw 3 images which represent key themes. Label with appropriate evidence. Those 3 themes, you might find that one of those themes is in here. I want you to consider the assessment objectives. So label with the key points and highlight important quotes that link to key themes and events within this part of the text. Where can you see contextual links with historical knowledge and across the text? So think about what the context we looked at earlier. So AO1 is to understand and respond to text and use quotations and discuss them. So you might want to pick out some key quotes which show Jack's degeneration here. AO2, analyse using subject terminology. So it might be useful to write those out in your books and then annotate them within your books, so you've got a bit more space than there is on here. And then include social and historical context. So you can when you're analysing the quotation, you can then think about what context you might write about if you were going to write it up in a paragraph as well. Then the final box here, it says adaptation to their surroundings is the only way the boys will survive and stay on the island. To what extent do you agree with the above statement? So think about that. So it says adaptation to their surroundings is the only way the boys will survive their stay on the island. Now, what happens when they do adapt? What happens when they do start painting themselves for camouflage, so to speak? And what happens when they create these groups of hunters? Would you say that to some extent that is useful? But to how much extent is that actually useful? Okay, so use your knowledge of the entire text to extend your answer and make links to key themes and characters. So this doesn't have to be long. It could be just a paragraph just to summarise your ideas. And then you've got key terms here. So select at least 3 key terms which you could use when writing about this extract here, with links to the whole text. So one of them definitely would be degeneration that you could write in there. Okay. Okay, so I think that's everything. If you have any questions, then please do send me a message on Google Classroom, and I hope this has been useful.